Kamala debuted a new accent in Georgia. The white women for Kamala are even more cringeworthy than Kamala's fake accent. And a fake news journalist tried to take a dig at JD Vance, but she missed by a mile. It's time for my losers of the week. It's a brand new month, and it's time for August's first batch of Real Losers. First up is Vice President Kamala Harris for many reasons, but for brevity's sake, I picked just one. So Kamala is about as fake and phony as they come. It must be a California Democrat thing, or maybe just a Democrat thing, come to think of it, because Hillary Clinton tried to pull the same crap in 2016. But after Megan Thee Stallion's titillating performance at her rally in Atlanta this week, Kamala was apparently so moved by the lyrics, classy, bougie, ratchet, she decided to try out a new accent.
The path to the White House runs right through this state. And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
So Kamala is not from the South. Kamala is from California. So why the hell she adopted that accent, even if just for a moment, is rather bizarre. But like I said, this is not new for Democrats. Hillary Clinton did the same thing. She was all of a sudden very Southern in southern states. And who could forget that mind-boggling appearance on The Breakfast Club, wherein she claimed she carried hot sauce in her bag. But these people just can't help themselves. They are robots, and I don't care what yarn the Democrats spin that they suddenly like Kamala Harris. I don't buy it. And here's another thing I don't buy. Whatever this cuckoo bird is selling, behold, white guilt for Kamala.
So tonight, I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself. We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other. But don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. A lot of the times, being an ally means being willing to be uncomfortable. And no one is more uncomfy than someone talking to their bigoted family members. So yes, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. No pun intended. Get it? Over half of white people, or almost half of white people, voted for Donald Trump both times he ran for president. So you know someone that you need to talk to. Do it.
Imagine dating that woman. Imagine being married to that woman. But let me guess, that woman also posted a black square for George Floyd in 2020 and virtue signaled her cure for racism. You know, the Kamala people get real angry when you talk about her race and her gender, but they've simultaneously decided to make her entire campaign about race and gender, even segregating her supporters into Zoom rooms based on race and gender. And that's low, even for them. But since we're playing moral limbo, here's journalist, and I use that term very loosely, Molly Jong-Fast on MSNBS, claiming Senator and Trump running mate J.D. Vance wants more white kids in America.
Stats are there. More and more Americans choosing not to have kids, which again emphasizes why J.D. Vance's comments about childless Americans, childless cat ladies, could be so politically damaging.
Well, so what's interesting is this natalism that comes from an authoritarian playbook, right? That there need to be more white children, right? That's the idea, that there's, this is about great replacement theory racism, right? This is what this is. So don't misunderstand it for him wanting more children. He wants a certain kind of, racist thing.
There's just one problem. J.D. Vance is married to an Indian woman and has biracial children. A simple Google search or just basic awareness could have prevented that really bad flub, but then again, it's MSNBS, so there you have it. Those are my losers of the week. But this week hasn't necessarily been an easy one for former President Trump. Yesterday, he graciously showed up at the conference for the National Association of Black Journalists. And I'm sorry, but Helen Keller could tell you it didn't go well for anyone at all.
You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe
I have
that
answered the
black voters
question.
should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the
answer.
Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Oh, the environment was hostile, but at least he showed up in person, something the current president and presumptive Democrat nominee wouldn't do. But I want to bring in State Freedom Caucus Network Communications Director Greg Price with his reaction to that. Greg, obviously I saw you posting a bunch of clips from that conference. It went a little haywire. A lot of moments there that make us laugh, some that maybe make us cry. What are your overall thoughts? You think that he should have showed up to something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows that he'll step into hostile environments whereas his opponent will not. Like, would you ever see Kamala do an interview with, forget people like Tucker Carlson, not even like Brett Baier, Martha McCallum, or anyone who's isn't completely on her side? Of course she wouldn't. And so I thought it showcased really a lot of 2016 energy out of Donald Trump. I thought he didn't take the bait from Rachel Scott or any of those reporters at all. And he shoved a lot of it back in their face. When someone comes right out of the gate and calls you a racist and says you're a horrible person, the only proper response that you can give to that person is to give them the middle finger and say, wow, you're just a rude person. That's the perfect response to that. And I thought obviously liberals freaked out over a lot of the things he said because, you can't be hostile to a black female reporter when she comes out of the gate and calls you a racist. If that happens, you just have to accept it, or you're an even bigger racist.
See, that's the challenge of Republicans trying to go into the lion's den, as they say. Trump does it often. A lot of us do it on different occasions. I remember when I walked into The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and it was much the same introduction. It was like, welcome my guest who is probably racist. And, it's kind of hard when you're introduced that way, because where do you go from there? You're backed into a corner already. Trump is very used to being backed into a corner. But strategically speaking, Greg, because I know that you're a strategist as well, do you think that it helped his campaign effort to walk in there? I know that we love it, but we're already going to vote for Trump. Do you think it helped him with the people he needs to win over?
I mean, I don't think it really helped or hurt him. I think at the end of the day, people who love Trump watch that and will still love him. People who hate Trump watch that and will still hate him. And it doesn't really move the needle in any particular way. But what it did do is it gave him, a lot of really viral clips of him going after the media in a way that really galvanizes Republican voters and maybe voters in general who mistrust the media, because I don't think the average person could watch what Rachel Scott was doing up there and conclude that she conducted herself in a professional manner. She was clearly very biased against Donald Trump. And if there's one thing that really galvanizes our side of the political aisle, it's the fact that the media sucks and is full of horrible people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fully disagree with that. I do think that he was kind of classic Trump there. Classic Trump worked in 2016. Classic Trump did not work in 2020. So I'm not sure it'll work in 2024, but I guess the verdict is still out on that one. There was another moment, though, and I know that a lot of people thought it was hilarious, where Trump made some comments on Kamala's race. I want to play that and get your take.
Believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Okay, so I liked the end of that where he called her out for her hostile and nasty tone, kind of going back to the nasty woman comment that he made about Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren and maybe some other folks there. So you and I watched that and we laugh, and my entire studio laughs because it's funny. It's funny. But I'm, again, strategically speaking, not speaking as a Trump supporter, but speaking as somebody who would just like to see Trump win an election, I'm a little concerned that him kind of going back to the whole birther thing with Obama, it's kind of reminiscent of that. I'm a little concerned by it, maybe turning some people away. I'm guessing you disagree, but why?
I mean, I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I think the same goes for what I just said, where it's hilarious if you're a Trump supporter, it's stupid and evil if you hate Trump, and it doesn't really move the needle in any way. But it is reminiscent of a lot of things in 2016 where Trump says things that, the media declares that you're just not allowed to say, and they declare that it's a bridge too far. Like you obviously remember well, every single day was a bridge too far with Donald Trump, and you're not allowed to say that Kamala Harris is kind of identified one way and identified the other, depending on the political situation that she found herself in. Like you can go back to when she was attorney general, back to when she first got elected as a senator, and news outlets write whole stories and do whole segments about how a big deal it is that she's the first Indian American senator. And now that she could be the first black female president, it's back to that. And obviously Donald Trump riffs in the way that Donald Trump does. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's hilarious. If you're on one side, you hate it if you're on the other, and everyone's going to forget about it in 1 week.
See, I don't know if people are going to forget about it because Trump is really tripling and quadrupling down on it. And here's what I'll say to this point. I don't disagree that Kamala Harris is phony. I don't disagree that she speaks to one group one way and another group another way, and she changes with the wind. Don't disagree. Most Democrats do pander, and they do that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing that out. But I will say this. I feel like if we do talk about, is she Indian, is she black, is she both, I feel like that allows Kamala to get such a pass from talking about any of her radical positions that she's changed her mind on, or anything that she's done as vice president in the Biden-Harris administration. So my only concern is that it allows her to focus on Trump's attacks on her race and gender, which is much easier than addressing her actual policy record. Do you think that we step into the territory of maybe making a martyr out of Kamala and giving her a pass because of it? Because that's my worry.
No, that's definitely a legitimate worry. I'm sure, I didn't see how her campaign may have responded to this, but I'm sure, they said something along those lines that Donald Trump is attacking her based on it. No, I totally agree with you that it's definitely more effective to attack Kamala based on the very left-wing positions that she said that she took in 2020 that she's now disavowing in 2024 than focusing on, whether or not she identifies one way or another. No, I totally agree with you on that. I think I disagree on the way that it moves the needle among the broader electorate. I think this is something that is sort of just an extremely online thing that's going to be a news cycle for a day or two. And then, Trump will say something else will happen. And then it'll just be whatever.
Yeah. Well, he'll probably say it again a few more times. My concern is if there is a debate, and there should be a debate between Kamala and Trump, and I think there will be. I understand the Trump campaign is going to wait to see if she's even the nominee, and they're going to set, more guidelines that are at least somewhat more in their favor than what Kamala wants, and that's completely fair. And I agree that they should wait, and they should be able to have a say in the venue and the rules and the guidelines and all of that. But my concern is if there is a debate between Trump and Kamala, it should be a slam dunk for Donald Trump based on policy. And I would like to see him sit there and say to her, like, you supported fracking, or you supported a ban on fracking because you said that it was an existential threat to our climate, but now you don't support a ban on fracking. So did that change? Is fracking no longer a threat to the environment? Make her answer those kind of questions. Make her answer the questions about how she doesn't consider undocumented individuals to be criminals. I would like to see him do that, and he probably will. But if he sits there and says, are you black or are you Indian? That's going to be the headline, and I worry that a debate could go off the rails like it did for Trump and Biden in 2020. What would you advise the Trump campaign heading into a debate with Kamala?
I mean, I would just urge Donald Trump to be Donald Trump. He already ended the career of Joe Biden off of one debate where he did a great job of focusing on, the policy differences between his 4 years versus Biden's 4 years. And, he sat back and allowed Joe Biden to essentially end his entire political career. He did a really good job there. And I don't think the strategy needs to change with the debate in Kamala all too much. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit different because Kamala is actually not half in the grave like Joe Biden is, but she still owns all of the horrible policies of the administration. She still owns all of the radical positions that she took in 2020, when she was struggling to find her constituency in the race, and therefore just took the most left-wing line on every issue. And so I don't think the strategy changes all that much. I think there's definitely going to, be debates as well when Kamala is finalized. And I think Trump is going to do a good job in them.
So running mate for Kamala, you are obviously in Pennsylvania, an important state. Who do you think it's going to be? And do you think that the Trump campaign should be at all worried?
Yeah, I think it's becoming rather clear that it's going to be Governor Josh Shapiro. And yeah, I mean, I definitely would be worried about that too. He's a very popular governor of one of the most important swing states. He kind of puts on a moderate facade, even though he holds all of the same left-wing positions that Kamala Harris does. And, as a Pennsylvanian, somebody who disagrees with him, he is a genuinely likable guy, but he's also a radical who would destroy this country as president. But yeah, I mean, I think the race it will definitely take on an entirely new dynamic with Shapiro on the ticket. Obviously, just because of what I said. And yeah, but I think a debate between Shapiro and JD Vance would definitely be very compelling as well.
Compelling for sure. I am worried about it, though. I do think that her picking someone that at least presents as moderate is going to be a challenge. Anyone that thinks that this election is going to be a slam dunk for Donald Trump is way too cocky and confident, because I think it's going to be, again, a very close one, and we cannot afford to get comfortable. Another thing I do want to play for you, going back to that conference from yesterday, and I want to get kind of your color commentary on it, is Trump in the water bottle. So I want to play that footage here. It's going viral. I think you probably posted it as well. Let's take a look at it together. So we're watching it on the screen there. He appears to take her water bottle, tighten it, and put it back. I don't know if he just mistook the water bottle as his water bottle, or if he was doing something to tighten hers as, I don't know, a joke. What do you think happened there?
It's a whole debate over whether he tightened or loosened it. It's water bottle gate. This is, one of the biggest scandals of the century. I think, the Trump campaign needs to come out with a full statement on, whether or not he tightened or loosened the water bottle, if there was nefarious activity involved. Water bottle gate. We got to get to the bottom of it.
I have never seen a water bottle be as popular as it was when Marco Rubio gave the response to the State of the Union. I think it's funny. Again, I don't really know what happened. I'd love for someone to ask him exactly what he did there. Very interesting. But in a much more serious note, we've got footage obtained by Fox News Digital, another angle of the Trump assassination attempt. I want to play it. It shows that freak running across the roof. Apparently no one saw him. Apparently Secret Service didn't see him. It's amazing, their blind spot there. Let's take a look.
Great gentleman. So we're going to bring him up for can we bring him up for a couple of minutes? You get ready, McCormick. You get ready. I'll get you up. The world will see a vibrant Republican Party.
How, what, why, Greg? How could this possibly go unnoticed by security?
Yeah, I mean, just on a different note off the bat, like this happened less than 3 weeks ago, and like the media has just completely stopped talking about it. Like we saw a miracle on national television, like Trump was literally millimeters away from death. And, you know, this is just out of the headlines 3 weeks later. But yeah, I mean, it's become very clear that this has gone beyond incompetence from the Secret Service at this point. They put Donald Trump in a position to where they put him in a position, in the perfect storm to be assassinated based on all of these security failures. The fact that somebody could not only have a gun on a roof and people are noticing and pointing this out to security and they don't do anything, but he's actually like running across a roof in plain sight, less than 200 yards away from a former president and current nominee for president. And the Secret Service just lets him remain up there. They don't fire a single shot. They clearly saw him doing this. The question is, why did they do nothing about it? And I'm glad, you know, obviously we have this task force now in Congress that'll hold some hearings and maybe get to the bottom of it. But, you know, it's beyond incompetence at this point. The fact that they knew this guy was there, the fact that he was operating a drone 3 hours before the speech, he was allowed to bring a rangefinder in, the fact that they knew he was up there before Donald Trump even went out on the stage and they still let him go out there. Like these are really things that make attributing incompetence to them just makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it is furthering a lot of conspiracy theories, and one hates to do that, but the incompetence level here, I mean, I go through more security to go to a flippin' AAA baseball game than apparently you need to get into a rally with a former president and a current candidate for president. Speaking of controversies, I want to get your take on this because it's very confusing, controversial, weird. The Olympics, the boxer who I guess we can't qualify this person as trans or a biological male, but kind of with the chromosomes not passing male eligibility or female eligibility, but this poor Italian female boxer getting knocked out of the competition in about 46 seconds. I don't know all the ins and outs of the testosterone and the chromosome mess of it all, but do you think that this is going to move the needle now that it's on an Olympic stage?
I mean, you would certainly like to think so. And yeah, as you said, it's interesting because apparently the person is not a male who transitioning to be a female. It's somebody who was born intersex and has female, you know, genitalia, but has an X and Y chromosome. There's like a medical term for the condition that this person has. But this person still apparently failed, you know, multiple testosterone tests that are apparently standard for whether or not you can actually compete against women, yet the IOC still allowed this woman to compete. You know, whatever he has doesn't really matter. If this person has has testosterone to the point where it's a competitive advantage, they shouldn't be allowed to compete against women. Like, you know, opportunity, you know, again, this has obviously been a big issue in America. And, you know, now that it's on a world stage, I certainly hope it moves the needle. But the reality is one side of the political aisle stands in full support of it. Like we just talked about Josh Shapiro, you know, he was in full support. There was a bill passed in Pennsylvania shortly before he became governor that would have banned men from women's sports. And he said and Tom Wolf, the former governor, vetoed it. And he said he would too. And Kamala obviously supports this as well. Today's the first day of the new Biden admin Title IX rewrite that basically forces men into women's spaces. You know, you'd like to think that it moves the needle, but you know, the more and more it happens, the more galvanized the political left is to putting men in women's spaces. And it's really disgusting.
Yeah, and there are obviously much more egregious examples, what happened with Leah Thomas and others, and even other boxing competitions where it is actually a man who transitioned to be a woman, and it's much more egregious. This situation is weird because of not being a trans person, but having parts and testosterone levels. But to me, none of that really matters, because if this were a female born a female who was taking steroids, she wouldn't be allowed to compete because she would fail a test and she wouldn't be allowed to compete. So the fact that they're making these accommodations because this person does have a specific condition, I don't know why this person's specific condition matters more than the female boxer who doesn't have elevated levels of testosterone. To me, it's just complete and total BS. But I think the Olympics are losing a lot of people for a lot of reasons, because it's become ridiculous with the opening ceremony and the Last Supper BS. And I just don't know where we go from here, but it feels like there's nothing left for normal people. Is there anything left for normal people that we should be watching?
Yeah, and like just on another note, this is the same Olympics that, you know, banned Russian athletes from competing under the Russian flag due to all the doping allegations. So like you can, if you dope up your athletes, it gives them a competitive advantage, and then they have to compete as Olympic athletes from Russia. But apparently they allow, you know, people with elevated testosterone to box against the women. It's really dumb. And yeah, normal is going by the wayside these days. You know, unfortunately, you know, the pushback to a lot of this craziness is a legitimate thing. Like you see the impact that people like Riley Gaines have when it comes to specifically the women's sports issue, but specifically standing up for biological realities and just reality in general. The thing that keeps me hopeful is that, you know, the backlash to this, you know, not even just among conservatives, but people who may not even identify conservative is certainly very real. And that should give a lot of people hope for the future.
You're right. Hopefully common sense can prevail somewhere. And I think nailing Kamala Harris on her take on this and her reaction to men and women's sports will be important and will be telling. And I hope she's asked about it, and asked about it very soon, because if she's changed her position on that, we got to hear why, because she's going to upset somebody. So it's time to put her in the hot seat and make her actually answer policy questions. And I hope that somebody does it real soon. Greg, I always appreciate you. I appreciate your tweets that are always going viral. And thanks for joining me. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. All right, folks, that does it for this episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Please join me tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for a deep dive into Kamala's failed state of California and the lies Gavin Newsom is spinning about his encampment cleanup. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.